Good morning and welcome to our live coverage from AWS reInvent here in Las Vegas. You are joining us on the AWS Launchpad, and we are going to be with you throughout the next 3 days, bringing you launch announcements and diving into some of the services that you might have seen announced in this morning's keynote, as well as exploring a lot of other new services that are going to be announced from AWS over the course of the next week. My name is Ian. I'm with the developer relations team here at Amazon Web Services, and I am joined by
Marcia. I'm a technical evangelist for AWS.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm also a technical evangelist from Italy.
Hi, I'm Robert Zhu, and I'm also on the developer relations team.
Great, and we're going to be discussing some of the announcements in this morning's keynote in this first segment, and then after that, we're going to cut to a 5-minute roaming camera segment. You're going to have a lot of these over the course of the next couple of days, where our team will be around the expo, around the event here in Vegas, hoping to bring you some of the excitement of the show live to you on Twitch over the course of the next couple of days. So Rob, maybe I'll ask you first of all, what was your favorite announcement from this morning's keynote? There's a lot of stuff in there, but what particularly caught your eye? What are you most excited about?
Do I really have to pick only one?
You can pick a few, of course.
Okay,
you can pick a few.
I'll go with two then, if I can get away with two. I think Kendra was an exciting announcement that came out of nowhere. And now that I think about it, I shouldn't be surprised, but this is something that I've struggled with. And I've worked at a couple different companies now, and every single time, internal search is a mess. And I've often thought somebody should come along and make this 10x better. So I'm really excited to see what happens with Kendra.
Maybe you can recap a little bit more about the launch for some of the viewers that might have just joined the stream.
Yes, so during the keynote today, we announced Amazon Kendra, and this is our machine learning powered enterprise search feature. And what this product allows you to do is you can point it toward all of your different documents, your PDF files, your internal web pages, and it can basically analyze the text, it can index the text. Well, we've always had services that could do that before, but it can now apply turnkey machine learning to understand the contents of those documents, because the contents are typically unstructured. And then now you can submit natural language queries to it, and it can give you intelligent answers instead of kind of having to crawl through wikis and outdated links and that kind of thing. And what I really like about it is this is a perfect example of what happens when we can assemble mature machine learning services at scale. And speaking of machine learning, of course, how could I not be excited about SageMaker Studio? But I think I'll leave it to one of you to talk about SageMaker Studio. But I am very excited about that as well.
Great. What about you, Alex? What was your highlight of this morning's keynote?
I'm very excited about Code Guru. As a developer, I think I spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours in my career, reviewing other people's code. And if you have some help there that can show you, there's an issue here, there might be a performance problem, or maybe you're using a library wrong, or you have a dependency issue. So I think the best two features are that you have some automated help inside your pull request. So you create a pull request to update the code, and Code Guru will say, we'll basically automate a code review as if you had another peer in your team, right? And the second best feature, I think, is code profiling. So you can get some help regarding performance issues, for example. I think that will save hours and hours to a lot of customers.
Great. Marcia?
Yeah. I was thinking about Code Guru as well, because I'm a developer, so that was, for me, very powerful launch. But also the autopilot for SageMaker, because I believe that cloud has the ability to democratize all the infrastructure to everybody, and I think this is a great way to put machine learning out for everybody out there that doesn't have the knowledge of making their own models. So basically, what I understood, you upload your data, and then SageMaker Autopilot will create the models for you and train it with 15 different models, so you can check which one is the best and which one is performing the best. And then you can deploy that into production, and you can have a whole machine learning application without really not knowing anything. So I think that's super, super powerful for everybody.
What I found really interesting about all of your answers there is you all went right up to the top of the stack, but we also announced a lot of stuff which is more hardware-centric releases, and it might be worthwhile just recapping and talking a little bit about that, particularly the stuff that was right at the beginning of the keynote, the Graviton V2, which is the new generation ARM-based semiconductor product that we're putting inside our latest generation of EC2 instances. It's going to deliver improved price performance, and will actually increase the terminal scalability of those ARM-powered instances really significantly, so you can use them for general purpose computing, databases, or even HPC workloads on ARM. That's quite a big jump forward from where we were last year with the first version of that product that we announced. And then we also announced something else in the inference space as well. Does anybody want to take that and talk a little bit about Inferentia?
Yeah, we announced the Inf1 instances. So last year we announced Inferentia, which helped a lot of customers run their inference, their deep learning, machine learning inference on a chip, basically. And now these instances come with that chip, basically. So you can choose them as part of EC2 and coming soon also SageMaker, ECS, and EKS. So that will help you run your machine learning inference workloads,
Lower cost, yeah, lower cost. Should say that during the Twitch broadcast this week, we're going to be taking questions on the stream, of course, from Twitch chat. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask our panel right now, or ask any of our expert guests throughout the course of the broadcast over the next few days, please submit those using Twitch chat. We can see the screen in front of us down here at our feet, and we'll put those questions to our experts during the course of the week as well. Do you want to dig a little bit more into some of these database and analytics services as well? Because there were quite a few announcements in the middle of this keynote today that covered new analytics services, performance enhancements for existing services, and also a brand new non-relational database service that we announced. So does somebody want to recap those maybe for the viewers on the stream?
Yeah, sure. You want to go, Rob? I can go. Oh, yeah. I'm personally quite excited about the new managed Apache Cassandra database. I have a lot of friends and fellow developers that love to use, Amazon DynamoDB or DocumentDB for their non-SQL workloads, and now they have another option. So you can run your Cassandra databases on AWS, and I think now we support version 3.11. But I think the best part is that you can have both on provision capacity and on-demand capacity, similar to DynamoDB. Basically, so you can be almost serverless if you think about it.
Yep, and maybe it's worthwhile just talking a little bit about situations in which customers might choose to use Cassandra versus relational engines. So there was a question on the stream earlier during the launch comparing Aurora and Dynamo and Cassandra to one another. Can we maybe talk a little bit about how you might use those different technologies in an application? What are the differences between those different engines?
Well, there are a lot of use cases where you need super high throughput and you have a lot of writes. So historically, DynamoDB has been used for that. There are some use cases where maybe you don't want to have limitations on the item size, but you still want very high throughput, single-digit millisecond latency, and now DocumentDB and Cassandra can help you with those use cases, where maybe DynamoDB could be more too restrictive, or
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of our announcements that we made today regarding data analytics, the improvement and the pace of innovation for Redshift continues to impress me. I mean, we've always had these incredible features. I think we tend to get used to the pace of innovation, but we really need to slow down and appreciate just what the incredible gains that the Redshift team has made over the past year are. I mean, for example, way early in the year, they announced a set of changes that provided a 10x improvement over single pipelines. That's amazing. And on top of that, then they launched concurrency scaling. I mean, these two, this really just makes it so that the service can now scale to really meet any workload and provide ultra low latency. This enables all sorts of new types of use cases that weren't possible before. So I think, every time we have reInvent, all of the new product announcements, they're very sexy, of course, but we have to also give credit where credit is due, because these teams are working so hard to continuously improve the services under the covers. And that's the kind of innovation that I think, only at the scale of AWS can we see this kind of innovation happen across the board.
It's also easy for customers to move data from clusters that were provisioned using old technology onto clusters that are provisioned using the new technology. So we announced something today called the Redshift RA3 node type, which is a new data warehousing instance type that will feature in Redshift clusters that customers can create now. And it's very simple to replace an existing cluster with a Redshift RA3 cluster and benefit from really dramatically improved price performance. And that is a seamless process in migrating your data from cluster to cluster, which traditionally might have been something that you needed a team of consultants to come on site to do with traditional delivery models. So it's really easy for customers to take advantage of some of this new technology as well.
And also Aqua, the new hardware accelerated query for Redshift. So you just mentioned we just did 10x a few months ago. Now with Aqua you can get another 10x performance improvement. So that's
and the separation
that's 10x, that's at least 20x.
or 100.
And the separation between the storage and the computing is super important, how you don't need to worry so much about the storage. It's like pretty cool.
Right, and then what else? We had something
Ultra
about...
Warm.
Yeah.
Another old service that
People
got
love Ultra Warm.
Yeah, it's a good name. Yeah, but I think it's a good...
Somebody on stream is questioning our maths. Is 10x times 10x really 20x?
Of course it is.
I think not.
So what is ultra warm for Elasticsearch?
Well, it has some tiers of really warm data that you can query faster because at least Elasticsearch is used to store logs, and people want to do a lot of querying on it. So that's something new that has been added in Elasticsearch, stored in S3 or powered by S3, they said. So I hope that getting your
allow you to expand an Elasticsearch cluster to up to 10 petabytes in capacity. So you've got your hot tier on the nodes, and then behind the nodes, a much, much larger pool that you can pull into search and visualize using the Elasticsearch ecosystem.
It's pretty cool.
Cool.
What else do we have? We have a lot of SageMaker announcements.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
I think we have 6 of them, but all of them are connected with the new SageMaker Studio, so I think that's very convenient. You have a lot of monitoring and profiling and visualization all connected together in the studio. I think that will be pretty neat.
At the end of the day, it's improving the life of the machine learning developer to have an end-to-end solution that they don't need to go and find things here and there in order to make their job. So I think it's just trying to provide better solutions for those developers.
Yeah, I think my best here, if I have to pick one, is the SageMaker debugger. Because when you're training machine learning models, what usually happens is that it's kind of a black box. You start training models, maybe you would build 10 or 50 or 100 of them, and then you pick the best one. But during that training process, you have no idea what's going on, because you don't have visibility under those metrics. So what the debugger will do for you is that it will show metrics and which features are more relevant during training, so you can take informed decision even before the training is finished. So I think that's super cool.
The model monitor is also quite cool. It's after it goes to production, then a lot of times we have these models that they go out of date, and then you can see how the model is doing, and you can retrain it and have all those metrics available to know how your model is performing.
Yeah. We also announced a new notebooks feature for SageMaker, which changes the way that notebooks are provisioned and makes notebooks more portable across different instance types as well. So with that feature, you can run a notebook on a CPU-powered instance, for example, and if midway through your experimentation you figure out that you need GPU acceleration, you can pick up the notebook, all dependencies and all state, and move that notebook onto a GPU-powered instance for the period that you need that resource, and then move it back again if you figure out that you no longer need a GPU-powered machine to run that particular experiment. So it's a cost-effective mechanism for accessing different types of computing resource with dependencies encapsulated within the notebook. It's a new feature that we announced today as well.
Yeah. And what I really like about these announcements for SageMaker is that it appears that we're really hitting our stride with the SageMaker space. I mean, from the get-go, SageMaker was a suite of products designed to streamline the end-to-end machine learning workflow for developers and builders. And we're really seeing that come together with SageMaker Studio, where now we can bring all the information right to your fingertips so that you have it all available in a single integrated experience. I really like that. And I also want to highlight something that I thought was very profound that Andy mentioned on stage, which is that we're kind of approaching machine learning, this massive space that's generating so much innovation. We're kind of approaching it from both ends, right? On the one end, we're trying to make machine learning as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, and we're doing that through innovation such as SageMaker, such as the announcements that we've made with SageMaker Studio. But then you can also see that we have that diagram that we're at the top level, we have these kind of turnkey machine learning solutions, these machine learning AI solutions, things like Lex and Poly, and you can see that we've begun to assemble these services to build things like Kendra that you really, if you don't want to build a company with many data scientists or hire a lot of data scientists or train a lot of data scientists, you can also take advantage of all of the evolutionary changes that we're making in this space. So I really like that approach of just kind of attacking the problem from both ends.
Yeah,
I think
now we have a new
Detector
one.
was launched from there.
Yes, we have a new one.
Yes.
So I think there the experience is the same as Amazon Personalize and Forecast, but it's a new service that will help you detect frauds.
Yeah.
So you provide your historical data, all the transactional data, and what you get as an output is, is this a fraud or not when you provide new data. So I think that's pretty cool. You don't have to be a machine learning expert to do that.
And Amazon has quite a lot of experience doing that, so I think it's really cool that we can access that information somehow.
Yeah, it's really similar to what we did with Forecast and with Personalize, where we're taking machine learning technology that's used really extensively within Amazon and packaging it up in a way to make it more accessible for customers to use, of course. Now, we've got 5 minutes left on the clock down here, and we've got 4 major services that we haven't talked about yet. One of them is Fargate EKS. So maybe somebody can describe what Fargate and EKS is, first of all, for the stream, and then talk about the launch.
Want to go? I'll go. So Fargate Basically, if you're running containers on AWS, either on ECS or EKS, so you don't have to provision your clusters anymore. So basically, you just provide your containers, your container definition, your container image, and then the cluster is automatically provisioned, and we take care of all of that. But I think last year we announced it for ECS, and we announced it for EKS, and now it's available for both.
Yeah,
so
and we use an underlying technology there called Firecracker, which is a lightweight VMM, virtual machine monitor, and that allows us to segregate the different workloads into virtual machine-based isolation, and then run a pod of containers in the case of Kubernetes on top of that encapsulated resource. So it's a highly secure way to run containers without having to manage underlying instance resources, as Alex just said. And then the other three launchers that we didn't talk about are Outposts, Local Zones, and Wavelength. And these three launchers are kind of related to one another. Do you want to dive into what those are? We're back to the hardware products that we talked about a little bit earlier. So what is an Outpost?
Output was kind of announced last year.
Yeah.
Now, kind of announcement way, but now it's in, I think, in preview or general availability. So people can go and order their own hardware for their data centers, AWS hardware that works as a small AWS availability zone in your own data center. So we will take care of managing all the infrastructure per se. You just need to plug it, and it will provision that for you. And you will have really short latency on that, so it's super powerful for solving a lot of the problems that some of our customers have, that they want to have the shortest of all the latencies. For example, for making videos, if you have to do some transcoding of live video or things like that, you want to be right on the time to be able to reach that, make that video right to your customers. So there is many, many use cases.
Yeah, and I think we have one just next to the launch, but you can take a selfie if you are at Venetian.
Yeah, find us on Twitter and we'll get some pictures of the hardware, the Outpost hardware that we've got here inside the expo here in reInventing Las Vegas. There's a question here about which services are available inside Outpost. So the answer to that is EC2 capacity, plus all of the services that come with the VPC, with the networking services that AWS provides inside the VPC construct. So those are there. And then in the future, we will add other services. RDS is currently in preview. We're going to add S3 in the first half of 2020. And we're also going to make available right now EKS and ECS, and in future there'll be other EC2-based services available on that platform as well. So there'll be a lot of services available for customers to run inside the Outposts on their own premises, and those premises could be anywhere. It could be a co-location facility, it could be a manufacturing plant. It really is about getting those computing resources close to where customers need to run those workloads and applications with really, really low latency, of course.
Yeah, and speaking of Outposts, I think the decision to kind of rack and stack within your own data center, we now have so many different choices for customers, right? They can rack and stack their own hardware, they can work with colos, they can acquire an Outpost, but we also have local zones. And that's kind of us eating our own dog food, where we're basically taking the Outpost hardware and we're building out data centers that are located near customers that otherwise are too far from a data center for their use case, and they don't have the latency that they want. So that's something that I think we announced we're launching in Los Angeles first, and then we're going to expand to other regions as the service scales out more broadly.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a question here about Outposts, about size limits. So yeah, the footprint that is deployed is a rack. We're not going to answer a whole lot more questions on Outposts now because we don't have a lot of time left, but we will be back later on today in the content program with a deep dive session with a principal engineer and product manager from the Outpost team. So if you want to find out more about Outposts and even see a demo of how you provision and use the resources within an Outpost, just stay with us and we'll show you that later on during the course of the day. We're going to feature a session on that later. What about Wavelength? Anyone want to quickly catch up on that? We've got a minute left, so give me a minute on Wavelength.
All I got was 5G.
So this is deploying AWS computing resources inside 5G carrier networks. So you'll probably be familiar with the modernization of mobile networks around the world as 5G gets rolled out. And this is a very, very high bandwidth, very, very low latency radio system that you can use to deliver really unparalleled levels of connectivity to mobile devices with extremely low latency. And because the latency is so low, we think that certain application types will be best served by putting computing resources directly in the 5G network, close to where the aggregation switches are within the large metro areas around the world. And this is what we're going to be doing with Wavelength. It will make AWS resources available to customers that are located directly inside carrier 5G networks. We launched with Verizon today, and in future we'll also have other carrier partners, mobile network operator partners around the world as well. Okay, great. We're out of time for segment 1, so I'll say thanks to my co-hosts. We're going to jump out of here now and take you over to one of our roaming camera crews here in the venue. So we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.